All right.
Here we
Hello. I
are.
think we're live for our first kickoff webinar, which we're calling from the ground up.
This is from the ground up,
From the
Greg.
ground up, literally the first one. We're here in London. So the idea is we're going to have a monthly webinar to talk about the AEC industry in general, but also actually the work we're doing at Motif and how that plays into the industry. So myself, Greg Demchak, and
Yeah,
my
and
good
I'm
friend
Matt
Matt.
Jezik. So Greg and I, we've known each other since at least 25 years now, and we've been through some pretty amazing stuff in the industry, in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Um, Seeing the birth of building information modeling, seeing people go from 2D AutoCAD to 3D parametric modeling, and then you took things farther into construction.
Mhm.
So that was pretty amazing. And now we're back together
Yeah,
working on the next generation tools.
yeah. It's super exciting. So yeah, both of us having gone through that path, and now here we are. We're in London for the next Build conference, which kicks off tomorrow. So we're presenting there tomorrow. No, you're on a panel Thursday.
Yeah, what are you going to be presenting about tomorrow?
So this would be cool. So last year, next Build, it's actually where I first ran into you and Amar.
Right.
Actually, it was presented at that point. It was just still in stealth mode, but you got the
Hmm.
feeling something really interesting was underway. And obviously
Hmm.
at that point, when I met you and Amar last year, next Build, you guys were already kind of like on the path. So
We were, yeah, and just a little bit about the company. So Motif is about 2.5 years old now. So it's still pretty early. And we started, from really just a couple ideas that we had, and then more importantly, from some of our early adopter, like design partners, we call them. So we are on this journey about rebuilding, a design platform for this industry. But as we go along there, we found some really interesting problems we can solve first, and that's what we have in the first application that we built out a couple months ago. So we could talk through those. But the interesting thing is, even like last year, Amar gave a really great presentation. So Amar Hansball is our CEO. He's well known in the industry, co-CEO at Autodesk. He's the CEO at Bright Machines, and he gave a really good, like, thoughtful piece on like what it takes to do a startup in this space, which is different than like building an iPad application or a little game on your phone or something like that. It's like serious work. So
yeah,
he gave like, I think it was like 12 points, and then he added two more last year to like a packed house,
yeah.
and it was really well received.
Yeah, yeah. So no pressure on me tomorrow. I've got to sit up on the same stage and talk about like the actual product and where we're going. But
Yeah.
that's what's kind of cool, actually, go from like thought leadership piece, kind of like an
Mhm.
inspirational piece about what a startup can do. But now, actually, tomorrow I'll be showing some examples of the actual product, what
Exactly.
it can do like today, and then a bit glancing to the future.
Yeah. How are you feeling about it?
No, it's really cool. I mean,
Mhm.
for me, it's been exciting to kind of jump in
Uh-huh.
and see what the product's able to do, and in terms of like it's like straight away like this ability to kind of just collaborate with people
Yeah.
like out of the box
And
just seems
maybe like,
modern.
if I mean, so we've been going to a couple different events over the last couple weeks, like this Digital Construction Week, and then the AIA conference last week. But even before that, we were at this thing at Cohen Pedersen Fox's office, both in London and New
Yeah,
York.
yeah,
Maybe you can talk a little bit about what you saw there, or like how some of the things we were talking about were received.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's what's it. So KPF, one of the
Hmm.
design partners you guys were working with, innovative architecture firm. So I think it is to a lot of the partners. These are well respected, well known firms out there.
Hmm.
KPF being one of them. They're willing to kind of be in that early adopter,
Hmm.
cycle, providing feedback before the app even releases. Now it's actually out there in the open. They're using it.
Hmm.
So we got a chance to like meet some people at their office, and
Hmm.
we're getting feedback from how they're using this collaboration tool
Hmm.
for design reviews, and
Hmm.
mood boards, sketching. It's, maybe you could
Yeah.
describe a little bit about actually
Yeah, what
what the
Motif is.
first product actually is capable of doing.
Yeah, I could do that. Actually, I can even just show some stuff
Yeah.
live. But I just, in the format of these, this is going to be pretty much just us, like, talking about current events, figuring out what's happening. Like, we're doing a bunch of these external things We're talking about every month we're putting out a new version of the
Mhm.
software so we can talk about those new features and how we're listening to customers and working with them really closely. And then just any other topical things as this industry changes. Things are moving very fast. So
Mhm.
just starting to get that forum together of like how do we talk about these new things and really discover how we're taking the industry forward.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think in the future we'll have, we'll invite some of
Yeah,
these
some of these
customers in, hear how
special guests.
they're using the software.
Totally.
Yeah,
Um,
so walk us through, because I know not everyone is totally aware of what we're up to, so like just
sure.
give us a quick overview.
There we go. Cool. Yeah. So, and we won't go through all the PowerPoint, but basically just to introduce like the topic. Like, so Motif is a company, we're a brand new startup. We're relatively new in the space. There are some of these other kind of BIM 2.0 people that have been around for a while, and they're all our friends. Like we know a bunch of these guys out there. Um, what we're building is the direct result of feedback from our early adopters. This is my co-founder. So Amar is our CEO. Brian Matthews, who's also in town, he landed here in London. He'll be at the next conference as well. So he's our CTO. Myself, I'm the head of product, and then Lyra Nikolovska is our head of design. So we've all worked together at Autodesk, and then we all interestingly left the design sort of space and went into manufacturing more. So these guys all went to Bright Machines, a kind of micro factory company, and then I went into the EV space, like figuring out how to manufacture electric
Yeah.
vehicles and build factories. But then now we're all back together after whatever 5 or 6 year sort of separation from like building design applications. We're building design stuff again. And we've been working with people like this is Bill Carney from DLR and various other people like Perkins and Will, KPF, we mentioned, Heatherwick, a bunch of other early adopter customers, design partners to build the next level platform. And what we're really trying to build is something that isn't just about like a technical BIM tool or a computational design tool, or even just something for like a technical architect. I want to build something much more accessible and available to the next generation of younger designers and
Yeah.
also people that are our age. I mean, I hate to say it, but we're
We're
both
the old guys,
middle-aged, man.
like we came up through that Revit period, but there's a whole new generation
Yeah,
coming up, and I think they've got very different expectations of what software looks and feels like, performance.
totally. And even like last week, I was at the AIA convention in Boston, and a lot of my colleagues that I went to school with that are either younger or older, the same age, are now running companies.
Mhm.
And like my view of like the AIA people are like the guys in bow ties and gray hair and stuff. And yeah, maybe that's sort of true now. But they could have been like technical people early on, like using Revit or Rhino or whatever other
Mhm.
tools, but now they're running the business and they're
Yeah,
handling other problems. How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep the people that are responsible for working with the clients understanding what the team back in the office is doing?
yeah.
Because they are a little bit disengaged right now. Like they're, oh, send me the PDF files and
Right.
I'll review them, which is a challenge. Like, how do we bring these teams together and communicate more effectively?
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that we heard pretty much loud and clear from all of these people is like, we need to be able to, like, our world is changing. Like, how many other tools do you have in your life that are desktop tools anymore? Like,
Mhm.
everything's gone to the web.
Yeah.
There's benefits of that, of accessibility. You can use your iPad or, browser anywhere in the world. You don't have to be a very technical person.
Mhm.
You can just log in and see where things are at.
It's like
Um,
that's how things are, right? Almost every app on your phone is just always on, accessible, real time.
totally.
But
Yeah.
this industry's been stuck. I mean, we worked on it, but like, it's just, it
Mhm.
was still kind of stuck with like sending a file back and forth, or
Yeah.
sending a PDF. So how do
Mhm.
we move the ball forward? So I think that's exciting. I think that's what.
So this was the first idea of like how do we bring these things together, bring the larger team together, but then ultimately build something that is, we're solving 3D problems. Like we're solving architects and engineers are inherently 3D problem solvers. So this collaborative environment needs to be 3D.
Mhm.
And it needs to be natural and easy for people to use. So that was the second challenge that we took on. And we can see that in a second. And then you can start to see it like right here. So this is Motif. Like this is basically, you can start from essentially a very simple interface using, 2D sketching and layout very much like an infinite canvas tool or a graphic design tool to create presentations. But inherently, it's a three-dimensional tool under the covers, and it's multi-user, right? So you can access this tool from anywhere. We can all collaborate and build a presentation together, and mark it up and add comments and history like you would expect. But from that, those natural sketching tools that you can use with your pen or your finger or a mouse also work directly in 3 dimensions as well. So that's one of the innovations that I think we're super excited about is really what Motif is it's a project in the cloud that you can have a clean web interface for and access from wherever. And the wherever could also be from Revit or Rhino. So here I just streamed a model from Revit directly into Motif. And it's what you see is what you get. You don't have to worry about publishing or saving or exporting. It's just like, yeah, whatever you're looking at goes out. And then now the team can literally start collaborating directly on top of that. I'm sketching right there directly in 3D. And this could be just with your finger, it could be with a pen, doesn't really matter. So that's one of the things that we found is like talking to people, they're like, literally the state of the art is take a screenshot, put it over here somewhere, and then mark up on top of it, and then send it back. So why not make it much more live, like linking of 3D models and making it more live from an interaction standpoint and make it simple.
Yeah, makes sense to me. That's very cool. And obviously you've got the integrations here, not just with multiple Revit models, but you can bring in Rhino models if you want.
Exactly.
You can drag and drop GLP files from SketchUp. So
Yeah.
it's got sort of native
Totally.
direct integration with the common design tools.
So that's really at a high level, and we can get into a lot more like live interaction demos, but at a high level for people that might be joining that are not familiar with what we're doing, brand new platform, expanding to a lot of different use cases, but the main ones right now are bringing the teams together to basically win better work, win more work, do better presentations, and then execute the work more effectively, right? So do better design reviews, collaboration, working with both people in your office and your colleagues, like the engineers that you work with or the owner or a client as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Reduce the friction for collaboration.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. But anyway, so that's the high level about what we're doing. What are your thoughts, just kind of shifting gears back to what we're doing in London this week? So there's Martin Day, so sort of like a large name in the industry, well-respected, analyst and sort of chief provocateur, if you will. What are your thoughts about where the industry's going and how, Martin's kind of been this voice, like both, advocating, pressuring, cajoling people to go certain ways. But where do you think what do you think you're going to see tomorrow at the conference?
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. So, I mean, if you look at the agenda, one thing that's going to pop out for sure is within this, this conference and just in general, you're seeing honestly, a lot of startups kind of emerging in the space.
Yeah.
And there is a common thread, I would say, across all the startups. I think there's an awareness that the desktop solutions, are still being used today for construction documentation, right? Revit and design modeling with tools like Rhino. There's Grasshopper. Those are all in active use, but there's just this growing pressure to kind of like modernize the stack. So I think if you look across the spectrum, all these different startups that are be presenting to us as well, sort of like cloud native, something to do with a browser, some version of like maybe sketching in a browser or modeling. And I think we're right up there in that space. We've got the architecture that's cloud native, it's browser based, it's got collaboration up front. I think what we've done here at Motif, which is unique, is this kind of multi-dimensional aspect to it. It's not just a model viewer with a single viewport for like a clash detection use case. It's not just like, let's take Navisworks and run it in a browser. So I think it's more like, in some ways for me, I think it kind of respects the complexity of the design process. That's not just I'm operating in Revit or I'm operating in Rhino. You can be working with images, with PDFs, with multiple 3D models. And so I think what I find just really cool about Motif is kind of this multi-modality
Mhm.
that it's got to it. Like here, what you're showing now is even like the fact that you can bring in the Revit sheets, for example.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a lot of solutions, right, where you can pull in a 3D model. We've seen a lot of that, but how often do you see just a live stream of the Revit sheets like this? I think you're doing this live, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yes, that's cool. So as I'm talking, Matt's actually fired up a project, and I'm looking down on my screen. He's just
Yeah.
sketching
I mean, this is
with the
what like
sheet.
we see people love is like literally, they just start noodling on problems like while they're in there. Like, oh yeah, let's just start
As we're
like
doing the
sketching
webcast,
out.
you're modifying
Like,
the concept.
yeah, like what if we
Like, why
did
not?
this? Let's
Beautiful.
make this
Yeah.
core. It's like just that design happens at the speed of thought, right? So like
Mhm.
how do we capture your thought process
Yeah.
easily and quickly? And preserve it too, right? So like the cool thing about this is that all of these models are it's like Google Docs, right? So
Mhm.
like literally this we have a history that's like up here of all my changes. So I could roll that back and be like, oh, that was kind of a dumb idea. Let me just go back to this state of the model back
Mhm.
here. And now it's clean. Or you go forward again and be like, okay, let me just reapply those changes. So they're all there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but what I like is that the same tool set can be used like in 3D and 2D together. So if I switch over to like, like that in my little mood board thing that I was in before, like those same tool set is just, I'm operating like right here. I can just sketch and anybody can collaborate in here. Um, yeah, so just kind of going back and forth. I actually have some other cool new models here that, oh, look, you're in that model right
Are
there.
you in this one? I
Yeah.
just opened up,
So I'm
so
in
now we're
the,
live. I opened up this university campus.
yeah,
So I see you,
right.
and I guess you must see my cursor flying around too.
And then, yeah, so our colleague Lily was in this model and she's adding comments here directly. We're all just interacting. We see Jeffrey from our office as well in the model. So this is what we think design should be like. Like you should be live collaborating with your peers and colleagues. You could share with somebody else, like you could bring in somebody else from your structural engineering office or the client themselves to answer a question or, um,
That's cool. I just drew a big rectangle on top of this roof. Like maybe we could turn that into like a roof garden or something.
Yeah, check it out. So there's your little change like right there. And then you could drop in other content on top of that. I mean, Motif is meant to be, it's an assemblage environment, right? You can drop and put whatever content in you'd like. The cool thing that what we found from talking with people so far is that you don't have to learn a new tool. Like you can use this one, but your primary creation design environment is still Revit or Rhino. So if that is your place that you feel most comfortable making something, stay there and then just literally share with a larger team. Like, so remember those principal level people that I was talking about? You could be the guy with the bow tie or, the person our age that's running a practice now. They don't have to use Revit or, worry about messing up the model or anything. They can just open up this thing and see what the team is up to, like literally live. There's
Yeah,
no like, oh, every Friday publish 1,000 PDFs. It's like, okay, here's the current state of this project.
yeah, yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
No, it's really cool. As we're talking, I'm in the model. I just get absorbed into like, zooming around, dropping some content, sketching. So
Yeah.
it's immediately accessible. It's got smooth interaction, good performance. Um,
What I like about it too is like you're literally sketching like directly on top of the model right
yeah,
here. So like kind of what you're saying, like you're sketching in the roof, like I could be sketching like a parapet detail or something like right in here. And we're all just interacting directly with the model. Um, so yeah, those are all fun things that, basically we have in the Motif product. And what I like about this too is that we've only been out for like 2 months,
yeah.
but we're rapidly iterating the software, just based on people's feedback,
Mhm.
and they're like, hey, we love what you guys are doing. I need to be able to see inside my model. I need to be able to slice it and dice it, or I need to see colors. And, we just added colors. Like
Yeah, yeah,
we had every color you wanted as long as it was white, like before. Like you
yeah,
had a white chipboard model.
yeah.
But now you can have colors and
Wow.
transparency. So that's cool.
And you can
Um,
flip back to like non-color if you want for that kind of
yeah,
cardboard looking
exactly.
model.
Yeah. So you can switch back to like a grayscale view. if you want.
By the way, it has been amazing because I've attended a lot of these sessions with some of the customers,
Mhm,
just to see that immediate and feedback
mhm,
uh, from architects. It's just a pleasure to be back working with architects again. Honestly,
mhm.
it's very cool. And then to see that feedback just come in and it's sort of like exposed here within 2 months of the new release. So
That's the
that's
beauty about like
like
a
web,
small
right?
startup. Well, first off, web technologies.
Yeah.
Second off, a small dedicated team. We're not a big company. Like it's a pretty small startup,
Yeah.
you know, but we're listening and we're like actually working on a daily basis with all these people. And, the benefit of this is like, yeah, a lot of the stuff we know, like we
Mhm.
need to keep on modifying the software, but some of the things we didn't know, like, or
Yeah.
there's like new ideas that people come up with. We're like, oh, wow, number
Right.
one, that's a really good idea. And it's actually really easy to do. Like, let's
Yeah.
do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we can do that and then get it out super fast. So absolutely.
By the way,
Um,
another cool feature, I don't know if you showed it or when we were talking, like did you show the views navigation piece?
uh,
Like you can animate from camera to
Yeah,
camera.
so just like
That's
basically,
big.
yeah, we have these views on the left here that are like, keyframe animation kind of stuff that I can save
Yeah.
cameras and views.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this model doesn't have frames, but like we have other models that where you
Mhm.
can construct a whole presentation out of this and start to build a set that you might want to show to people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think this is going to be back to your question. I think this is going to be very exciting. We'll have the ability to kind of showcase this work in the context of all these other,
Yeah.
innovators in the space. I think it's worth mentioning too, since we're on the subject of like what Motif I think stands for. I think the
Mhm.
idea like right now it's got interoperability with
Mhm.
Revit and Rhino and sort of SketchUp and PDF. But in general, I think the approach here is like it's an open architecture, open platform.
Mhm.
So, I think the idea is that this won't just be the single container of all data, but it's like
Exactly.
something that can make sort of almost like an infinite number of connections to other types of data that can come into Motif, and then you can visualize, understand it, and react to it.
Mhm.
But it's not like the single monolithic,
Yeah,
CDE, so to speak. It's like a different
exactly.
architecture under the hood.
And that's the thing is that project information lives in so many places. And anyone that says they're the single source of truth, the dirty little secret is they're not.
Yeah,
There's six sources of truth.
yeah,
So our philosophy is different. It's not put it all in one spot. Link it to where, link it into this file, but it lives where it needs to live. So we have a concept like right now, the way that streaming works from our Revit and Rhino plugins is exactly that. Like we're taking any changes that you make from your Revit or Rhino file, and the plugin that we have is sending them to Motif, but it remembers that it's connected to your Revit
right,
file.
right.
And then, it'll be like, cool, like that's the source of truth. Like the Revit file, all we're doing is like mirroring that stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
all the geometry and properties and things. And it could be a web service. It could be connected to Slack or like a weather service or, some data that you have sitting somewhere in like OneDrive, like that. Those are all like valid connections.
yeah,
And some things are just, you don't need a live connection. Like some things is like, hey, that's just an image or
yeah,
just a
yeah.
PDF
Just bring it in,
file.
right?
Just bring it in. That's okay too. But basically the idea is exactly that. Like instead of a single source of truth, it's many sources of truth. And some of them that might be under your ownership as the architect or the engineer. And then some of them might be at the client level or other places. So supporting all that, our industry is messy.
Yeah,
So how do we build a tool that number one is open from a data standpoint? It's your data. And it's also, we have APIs that we'll expose pretty soon too. So you can access that information. But understanding that the information is not all going to live in one spot. It's going to be everywhere.
yeah, yeah. That's very cool. Okay, well, let's make a quick pivot
Mhm.
into another subject. I think we can kind of peer a little bit under the hood here.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think it's hard to like have a conversation these days about any tool. I don't care what
Mhm.
industry you're in without talking about machine learning and
Totally.
AI and
Mhm.
without it being kind of like like all fluff and stuff.
Mhm.
But I think, the philosophy here at Motif is like ML,
Mhm.
AI is going to show up at the center of like sort of every interaction,
Mhm.
and when we get to geometry and everything else and
Yeah.
annotations, that'll all come. But if we wanted to start even, you know, even in this first version,
Mhm.
where could you leverage? kind of like ML interaction straight away.
Totally. Yeah, just maybe a little bit before that. So like like I mentioned, we're doing these monthly releases, and we put out one on Friday, and there's going to be more information on this. So like last Friday, I'm going to send out some more blast on that this week, and we'll show that at this thing. And we're knocking off things like we added colors, we added file like link streaming, linked files, and various other stuff. But we're and we've been seeing the color stuff and link models like right there already. The cool thing that we're able to do is move these things to production, get them out to people as fast as possible. Um, but some things, like you mentioned, like AI, are foundational. So we have a whole team that is in Motif that are primary machine learning researchers, and they're doing the heavy lifting because a lot of the stuff that you see in the space right now has to do with like image creation or like the large language model type stuff, like with text. The body of knowledge that those machine learning tools have been trained on are not domain specific. Like they're very general purpose. They don't really know about architecture. They don't really know about CAD or 3D or 2D even. So one of the things that we're doing is building machine learning tools that actually are trained and will be more relevant for our industry.
Yeah.
And that's very foundational. But one of the things we get out of that is starting to titrate and add capabilities to the product as fast as possible. And one of them is coming up pretty soon. So yeah, so we've got some other stuff coming up in July. Let me just skip through this real quick. And then the cool thing that we're really excited about that you're going to show, I think tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Is some of these new image-based rendering tools or AI-based rendering tools. At the end of the day, like our philosophy is it shouldn't matter like what technology you're using. Basically, you have a goal, and that goal is I want to start making beautiful concepts. I want to ideate. I want to iterate. I want to have some provocation about design in my practice. And using these tools, like I think that's what's captured people's interest and piqued their mind so far is like they're willing to go through some crazy workflows to like get these results. But what if you didn't have to do that? And what if you even got better results because you actually have the real model? So instead of the image, we can actually create these same kind of AI renderings that are better because they know that it's actually a 3D scene. It knows that this thing is a building. It can differentiate between like this isn't like a wall hanger in your kitchen. This is like an actual piece of the building or the whole building itself. So the issues around scale, like what size is a brick supposed to be, materiality, color, even like depth, like the system that we're building actually understands those things and can go through this process. So here we see the system like just from standard views, like from Motif of your building, you can start to iterate and generate many different options and different styles just with these different inputs. And you can still add prompts and other things to them. But our point is that the design philosophy around machine learning and AI at Motif is it needs to be foundational. It needs to be part of the fabric of the application. There shouldn't be like a shiny AI feature in the corner. It should just be everywhere that makes sense. And this is the first case that it makes sense in right now, but there will be other ones. Like why shouldn't you be able to ask your model or your project like, hey, find me all the doors that are not fire rated that are in a fire rated wall. And it just lights them up. Like, so the things you would need to use like Solibri or Navisworks or something else for now to like do this crazy SQL query, if you can talk about it in a natural language way, like you should be able to execute that here. Or hey, I imported this spec 2 weeks ago. Go find the relevant information in the code and then compare it to the information in the spec. Like that's just text like that you have in the project already. So why not actually access it?
Access that query. Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think what I love about this whole concept, the UI UX that we've developed here is that sort of it's in context of the application. Like it's the image that came from the model, and then the prompting with the ML is like right there in the context of the object that you're interested in. And then it sort of generates variation. And actually, this is incredible too. You see behind the scenes, the machine learning understands the scale and those people
Yeah.
have prompted in, and you actually get scale figures at the
This was
right
really subtle. Like
dimensions.
there was a
Yeah,
prompt in here and it basically said add some people and
yeah,
some like some trees.
yeah,
So it figured out the scale of the people relative to the building. Like you don't have gargantuan like
yeah, yeah. You
10-story tall
have
people.
scale people.
Um,
It's also cool too. I think it's the fact that it produces three at a time. You know, this
mhm,
idea that like interesting fact of ML, it's this non-deterministic
mhm,
system. You could put the same prompt in
mhm.
and you'll never get the exact same image. So in other words, I think this is sort of respects the fact that the system itself can kind of imagine subtle variations on a theme.
Right.
And I think in a way that's quite cool is if you think about architecture in a way, like even going back to emergent patterns with trace paper back when
Mhm.
we were in school, right? You're kind
Right.
of laying trace and sketching, and then you start to
Yeah,
see just ideas emerge through layers of trace.
totally.
And I think in some ways this is it just empowers this kind of emergent.
And like where we were going a little bit before this is like why not just like even this like what if you were literally taking this image and like clearly you could push this through to ML, but like what if you were literally having this dialogue, like okay, like what if you said, hey, cool, like let's take this piece of glass and make it a little bit different or add some shading up top
Mhm.
here, like sketching as
Yeah,
another input.
input, and then it could just basically update the image
Yeah,
with that prompt. Yeah,
exactly. Or it's like, oh, this material here is like a little too heavy, change that. Like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
having that dialogue back and forth, I think is a really natural way to do this. And without as much text prompting, it's just more
yeah,
like,
yeah. Just
or just even
natural.
sketching a detail.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why couldn't you just sketch like, hey, I know I drew this thing. It looked roughly like this. Go find it.
Mhm.
Like those are interesting
I
workflows that.
think, yeah, yeah, it's very cool. I think, in a way, if you think about what like Chat GPT did for like
Mhm,
the masses in some way, or sort of democratized access
mhm,
uh, with just text, kind of like the way that we all work in image.
mhm,
And I think this is now speaking to like what's that common denominator
mhm.
for architecture. And I
Totally.
think it's this idea of like, well, the sketch, the hand sketch, the kind of the input being intent through a sketch
Mhm.
and text. And I think that's super fascinating. I think in some ways this is a great way to kind of re-engage like the just the whole architectural thought and design process that we all go through.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, like what, I mean, even if you had like some kind of like hard line drawing that was there to begin with, like say this like your existing condition from like Revit or something. But if you came back in and said, hey, like I want to figure out like a cladding detail that was like whatever, let's change a color here. Um, like I need to figure out a wind and rain screen that operates right here. I want to have like the structural system be like roughly like right here. And I want to have like, insulation like in here. I can't draw that very well.
That's
You
pretty
know what I
good.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, go figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
not that,
I
right?
mean, why
So,
not, right? That's intent and an ML system that's well trained. I think is what we're working on. Like that could infer the intent of a parapet detail
yeah,
and then generate them or go dig into your own like library and just bring up like reference details from your
exactly, right?
previous work.
So,
So I think it's just so interesting. I think it just changes the whole nature of interacting with software. Um, cool. Well, we're about 35 minutes in.
mhm.
Is there any other updates you want to cover with the product?
I think that's really the
Yeah.
key thing is that we're going through things very quickly. I think pretty soon you'll see some better navigation. Like, um, I'm not a gamer. A lot of the other people in the world are, so we're adding things like WASD navigation,
Yeah.
very similar to things like Enscape, for example. So
Mhm.
like smoother ways to interact with the model, a lot bigger models, sectioning tools, all those kinds of fun things. So be on the lookout for those. But yeah, we're super interested in engaging with more people and building this community, right? So
Yeah.
like, how do we? There's a lot of people we've been working with that have had their ear to the technology sort of mill, but now that we've come out of stealth mode and we have this product, like we're working with a lot more people around the world, and we're interested in working with more. So I think people should sign up for the webcast, of course, and then if you're interested, just go in and click on the link in the
Yeah.
motif.io. I'll just bring that up real quick. Um, so if you go to the website, just say get in touch at the very top if you haven't already, and you'll definitely be aware of what we're up to. And then you'll see more and more content from us pretty soon.
Nice. Yep. And if anyone's in London and next build, we'll be here with Brian,
Mhm. And Tatiana as well.
Tatiana,
Yeah.
Levi. So the team will have good presence the next 2 days.
Yeah.
We are looking forward to that. Seeing people in person is always
And I love this too, because like last year we weren't able to talk about very much. And even now, like we're not talking very much. Like we're listening a lot and we want to work with a lot of people. So that's what I'm excited about at these events is just showing what we have, but then also hearing what people really want to do in the next generation tools.
Okay, cool. We just have maybe a couple questions. Maybe stop sharing and
Yeah.
then we'll go into a quick QA. Now, if anyone does have questions online, feel free to send them in. We did get one question straight away, which is like, what's the timeline for those AI features we just showed?
Yeah.
And maybe it's, I don't even know if we can talk about those. Definitely, I mean,
I
that
mean,
was a
that's
live demo, but
exactly like that. So the thing is like we are developing these things and some of the things we develop are relatively fast and easier to do and some of them take a little longer. So we're working actively on the AI tools and they'll be out this summer.
okay,
Mhm.
cool. That was the big question that came through. Maybe we just give it one more minute. If there's any other questions that come up from the attendees, feel free to send them in. And if not, yeah, we can always answer questions live in person next build or
Yeah, of
where we
course.
happen to meet up with next.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm super excited about this. I'm happy you came
Oh,
along
here
for the,
comes some questions.
oh, there we
Okay.
go. Came along for the journey here. Wow, they're really
Oh,
stacking
wow,
up.
here they
Okay,
come. All
the
right, we have an
floodgates
active
just opened
audience.
up. Okay, cool. So
SketchUp integration. Is SketchUp bi-directional?
yeah, so SketchUp right now is what we call a static asset import. So you can drag and drop content in. We don't have native SketchUp import, but if you export to OBJ or GLB, you can bring that content in. There are requests to do like a plugin for SketchUp too. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's SketchUp. So you can use SketchUp, just export GLBs, which is that's a GLTF basis file. Next question, are you going to stay tackling the design phase or are you planning to go into build and maintenance?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, so we are actively, building a platform, and that platform is meant to solve the problems in architecture, engineering, and construction. I just was at an interesting company in London earlier today that was both a general contractor and also an owner of some really substantial properties
Yeah.
in London, like kind of two different arms of the same company. So these tools can be used by a broader team than just the architect right now. Usually when you do things in this space, you start with the architect
Mhm.
because they're kind of the thin end of the wedge. But then, it broadens out from there. But the thing is, this is a very horizontal tool. Like it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, computational person, or be deep in like 4D scheduling. It's just like, yeah, if you need to do planning, like you saw this like at
Mhm.
DCW last week,
Yeah.
right? Like what did you see there as far as applicability for construction?
I mean, just straight away, like I talked to some general contractors and just showed this use case for, I mean, just a very simple one, which
Mhm.
is, early, like site logistics planning.
Mhm.
Like superintendent be able to go into a board,
Mhm.
hand sketch like you were just doing, like lay down areas, site access, tower
Mhm.
crane placement.
Yeah.
And we didn't get into the live demo, but one another feature we have is drag and drop components
Oh, right, right,
from the
right. Yeah.
asset library. So if you load
Mhm.
up all this
Mhm.
these equipment, tower cranes, hoarding,
Mhm.
site cabins, you can actually very simple, like very easily, quickly lay out a
Mhm.
concept for site logistics. So
Totally.
even at that stage, and we're in that kind of early
Isn't that wild?
iterative design stage.
Yeah, because that's the thing is like people always think like, oh, construction people need to. Well, first off, the first fallacy is like I used to hear this all the time in Autodesk. Like for every one person that creates an asset, like a drawing, there's 10 people that review it,
Mhm.
which is true. But like they don't just review it; they add their own content on top of it. They need to draw. They need to add their own what if
Yeah,
scenarios. So having a tool that's easy enough to use, like you can use it with an iPad in your finger
yeah,
seems like it could be used in construction
right.
and even in operations. And that was the base of the question. Like, so how do you even getting into like not just construction and building, but also into operation and maintenance too? So let's see. So I'll read the next. You can answer
Yep.
this one. it's amazing. I see a huge benefit in implementing this on my projects, which are very artistic. I'm just wondering, um, long can it or will it clash? Oh, I'm having trouble parsing
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Or will it have clash detection feature in the future? So it kind of ties in what we were just talking about.
I
What are your
mean,
thoughts?
it's it's seems it, totally doable. I mean, I can't talk about when and
Mhm.
that will come into play, but given the
Yeah.
fact that we already have geometry coming in,
I mean, you did this at Syncro, right? Like, so like Syncro wasn't really meant to do clash detection. It was more scheduling, but like if you have the geometry and you know when and where this thing is, seems pretty easy to do
seems like a
clash,
cool
right?
idea for like one of these chat bots, almost like
Yeah.
find me all the clashes of MVP and structure,
Yeah.
and it could more or less, I think, probably find that out.
I mean, I think I would see, I mean, just as a complete just thought experiment, like in the same way that we handle comments in a very casual way, like more
Yeah.
like Slack,
Mhm.
less like Navisworks, less like an issue tracking
Yeah.
ball in court kind of thing. It's just more like, hey, let's come together and figure out how to fix this thing. Like
Yeah.
what if clashes were the same? Like when I hear clash detection, because I ran like a virtual design and construction
Yeah.
group, that was like heavy clash, like serious, like 27 models all on top of the other. And it's like a half a day of like no fun for anybody.
Mhm.
What if it was more fun again? Or what if it
Right.
was more probabilistic or, like something to do with like how things may interact with each other versus like a hard clash, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So you can almost like ward things off that could be a problem later on.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's interesting ways to solve that.
I think so. It's so funny. I can already see like
Yeah.
your mind thinking I'm
Mhm.
gonna vibe code this prototype
Totally,
over the
man.
weekend,
Yeah,
man.
we'll vibe code on the plane. That'd be great.
Okay, nice. What about textures, PBR materials, light, shadows? Like this is more about maybe photorealistic rendering
Mhm.
effects. I think it's interesting. It's some way. I wonder if sure we can get to that point, but I'm also thinking there's something interesting about this kind of Gen AI prompting. Like, what
Mhm.
if you just describe,
Mhm.
I want that
Yeah.
room lit with this light. Like the example we showed,
Mhm.
and we went quite quick, is like you could change it from like
Yeah, there
a
was something in
rainy
there.
day to a sunny day to this or that, and it
Yeah,
completely changes the lighting just, with
totally.
the
Like
prompt.
that's the thing, like, because we both actually worked on like the solar features like in Revit, and it was like, oh, I have to go in and mess with the sun settings, and then you need to set your location in the right position in the world and all this other stuff. Like, what if you just said like make it look like it's in Austin,
Yeah,
Texas?
at
Like,
12 noon, and it
yeah,
just knows what to do, right?
right.
That's
So
cool.
like, and that's like, just a proposition. It's just like, we don't even know where the site is yet. I can't
Mhm,
give you a lat and long
mhm,
for it. I just know it's going to be in Texas somewhere. So like, let's just say Austin, like that's one thing. But there is something about at least shadows, like when
mhm.
you're in the design
Yeah,
process,
yeah.
like having some understanding of like not materiality, but just like depth of surfaces and how light is going to interact with them, I think is
It's
interesting.
useful. Yeah.
So interactive shadows, I think would be higher up on my list than like and also there's just so many really good like near real time or real time rendering tools out there.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the business that we want to be in. I'd much prefer, we didn't really talk about this so far in this talk, but we are building a set of like-minded companies that will come together
This is
and
where these
collaborate.
connections can be made, right?
Yeah,
So not that we have to
right.
solve that problem, but we could make a connection, receive a
Exactly.
result, and it could just sort of like pump right back into Motif.
Yeah, like an analysis tool or like a carbon, footprint
Yeah,
tool or like
yeah,
life cycle tool. Like I don't want to build that.
right.
I've built
Yeah,
those before.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to build another. I want to
Like
go to like
connect
the
with the
best of breed
ecosystem. Yeah,
with
yeah.
the ecosystem. And like real-time rendering is a good example of that. Like there's really good tools out there. And if they have, web services or can hook up to ours, I think that's a much better solution for our customers, number one, and the overall industry as a whole.
Yeah. All right, cool. One last question that I think will close down the webinar. Modeling tools on the horizon. Where are we at
Totally.
that?
Yeah. So in the same way that we mentioned that we're investing heavily in AI and ML, we have people that are investing. We're building a design application too. It's not here now. It's not here tomorrow,
Yeah.
but we are investing in that. And it's built on the exact same platform that current Motif is, right? So it will feel and look very similar to what we have today in this collaboration tool. Um, The thing is, even if we had it today, like switching costs are so high in this industry. Like,
Mhm.
how long did it take to like roll out Revit, like
Right.
when we did it the first time? Like, it has to be basically an order of magnitude better to get somebody to switch. So that's what we need to work with people on. Like the people that are hopefully listening to this call, we need to work with them to figure out what is the next generation design tool. And in my mind, that has to do with not just building the right like line vector drawing tools, but it's like the quality of the design application and the expectations of ultimately the next generation of designers.
Yeah.
I don't want to build something for middle-aged white guys. I want to build them for like the people that are still in element or in not in elementary school, but like in a professional like graduate work or undergraduate work in design or engineering. Like, how do they think about the world, and how do we build a tool for them? But yeah, we're working on it. And I think you'll see something, pretty soon on that too.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, awesome, Matt. From the ground up, our first webinar.
Yeah, we did it.
Thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you for all the questions that came in. Super cool. Thanks for the engagement. And yeah, we'll see you all on the next episode.
Let's do it next month.
All right. Thanks all.
Nice work.